All right, welcome to episode four now. Four, correct? Episode four of Beyond Boundaries, and today we have special guest Jay Will, or
What's up?
full name Jake Williams. Today we did a pretty interesting concept. We did a draft. We looked at it as if we were currently GMs in the NFL trying to win a Super Bowl this year, right? Could we build a team? Now we didn't do a full 53-man roster, but we did do a 36-man roster. So, the rules. We had a 210 million cap space, and that is just based on this year's cap space. So, a little spoiler, like Brevin took Micah Parsons with the number one overall pick because his extension doesn't hit until next year. So that was like one of the best contracts probably in the NFL going into this year. Obviously, you need one head coach and one of each coordinator. And then on offense, we had 18 players, defense, 18 players. And then you can kind of see how they're broken out. Those sub players were depending on how you wanted to use them based on what like your coordinator's scheme was or what you felt was important to have extra of. So, with that being said, we are going to go into our first team, which is Revan's team. Can I hide this? No. He spent 209. He spent 209. I accidentally hid those guys. He spent 209, and I'll let him kind of take over on his team and his thoughts.
All right. So obviously, as you can see, I picked Kyle Shanahan. I believe I got the first pick in the head coach, or was it second?
Nope, you had first.
First.
So I picked Shanahan first. Biggest thing for me was obviously, as you can see in the NFL, he's one of the best coaches in the NFL, and he's one of the best young offensive minds in the NFL. And uh, it's I wouldn't say it's such an easy system, but a player-friendly system that a lot of players can fit into and excel really well. Offensive coordinator, I went more of like a quarterback guy, obviously a guy under Andy Reid that's been working with Mahomes for a lot of his career. He was a small stint in Chicago that didn't work out, but obviously he's not going to call plays, so that part wasn't that important. So just finding a guy that can be an important piece to the puzzle. And then on the defensive side of the ball, some people may not know him, but as a Michigan fan, I think he's going to be one of the best up and coming coaches. And as Mike McDonald got a head coaching job, I think it was 2 years back from the college. I think Jesse's going to be the same. And his system is he's from that Ravens tree, which is a very beneficial tree to be from. And I just think he's going to be one of the best defensive coordinators up and coming in the NFL. On the offensive side of the ball, some of the key pieces that I picked later in the draft were at quarterback because I took my quarterback. I was the third team to take the quarterback, and I got Justin Herbert. I was actually, coincidence, thinking more of Jalen Hurts in this offense, but I
That
had a little.
that's wild to say. This whole
I,
idea came from you dogging on Jalen Hurts.
I had some extra money, so I upped my quarterback position to get Justin Herbert. And I think if Justin Herbert was in a Kyle Shanahan offense, it'd be unbelievable. And then happily, I was able to snag CD with some extra money that I had, Jamar Chase, those two receiving core. I wanted to snag Kittle as well because of just the importance that he is in real life in the Shanahan offense, which was really valuable. In the beginning of my draft, I think I went five straight offensive linemen. So I was able to get some of the cheaper contracts with like Tyler Smith, some of the younger guys. I think Landon Dickerson just got paid, if I'm not wrong, but his contract hasn't kicked in yet. And so I was able to just get some of the young offensive linemen on cheaper contracts to be able to save money for bigger names on the defensive side of the ball, bigger names at quarterback, receiver, and areas like that. Obviously, as Donovan talked about in the beginning, my number one pick was Micah. And along with him being one of the best defensive players in the NFL, his contract is probably the best. I think it's like 5.4 off the top of my head. So it's a very cheap contract for a player of that caliber. Donovan wasn't too happy when I snagged good old Myles Garrett from him, but he he let him slide a little bit too far, and at the value of the pick, it was beneficial to get him and Mike on the same defensive line. Another player that I really was happy to get was Brian Branch. I think his cap hits like 1 point something, like 1.8. So it was a really good value for that kind of a player as well. And some sleeper picks that I like off of my bench are like James Cook. I think he could play like a role of like a Deebo Samuel in the offensive side of the ball. And then some younger guys like the Kobe Turner, everyone kind of figured out who he was for the Rams at the end of last year. I think DeMarvion Overshown will have a big year for the Cowboys this year at linebacker, so some youth there. And that didn't cost me much money because we're kind of searching for scraps towards the end of the draft. On defense, where Minter runs like a 3-4, which is 4 down linemen and 2 linebackers at times, which is more of his nickel package. In first downs, he runs a 3-4, which is the 2D tackles, your nose guard, your 2 edges. So it was really important to get like a player like Micah, which can go from linebacker to edge to D end. He can play a lot of different areas. So he really never has to come off the field no matter what package you're in. Any thoughts from you guys on the team I orchestrated to win that Super Bowl?
I'll let the guest go first, give his thoughts on the team.
Yeah, I really like the D line. The D line's a little scary, but hopefully my own line, as you guys see in the future, can at least slow them down, because there's no way they can stop my wide receiving core. But I also do like your wide receiver CD and Jamar are really good, but we'll see what actually happens with Kyle Shanahan, because he's kind of known as not making adjustments in the big moments. So, I mean, and my head coach is, I think, better, but we'll live with that. And yeah, overall, a really good team, really tough, really scary with Micah, Dexter, Chris Jones, Myles Garrett, some of the best pass rushers in the league. So they'll be really tough.
Yeah, that D line. I mean, my original like dream team, I had Micah and Myles as my edges, and he snagged them. I really didn't expect anyone to take Myles, $20 million. So I was kind of waiting on it, and then right as I was about to pick him, Brevin snagged him, so that was unfortunate. Yeah, that D line is pretty nasty. I think that offensive line, like you said, you went Micah number 1, and then you literally picked 5 offensive linemen in a row, and you were just kind of like cherry picking those best guys on cheap contracts that allowed you really to fill out your team. I think I would have, I don't know. You love Dron Bland. I think in terms of like these teams where you have such stacked rosters, I definitely think there's a better corner that could start at that number 2 spot, but you use money other places, and he's not a bad corner. But I think that's one thing. Demario Davis, I think he's a good guy. Again, it's just kind of hard at those spots. Like, where do you spend that money in terms of youth and like value in terms of that contract? But I think you did a really good job of building your team. You got 2 tight ends for Kyle Shanahan. That's the big thing. Like, it would have been dumb to get like 3 super elite wide receivers, and then your second tight end is something weird, and then you don't have perfect for Kyle. But yeah, I think this is a good team.
I forgot to mention, but about that Demario Davis, I think that's a big thing about Micah as well, because he can move into inside linebacker, and of a linebacker core of Raekwon and Michael is the speed and getting sideline to sideline would be insane. And then some defensive linemen off the bench to bring in to play D lineman when Micah's at linebacker on early downs. I think that's something Micah hasn't been used as well in the past, is being used at linebacker on early downs. All right. And don't forget good old Garrett Wilson on the bench at receiver. I've seen you try to diss my receivers.
Garrett Wilson is a decent off the bench guy.
Yeah.
All right, we can get to the next team. Jake's team.
Yeah. So I went with, I think I got the second overall pick with head coaches and first with the offensive coordinator. But I went with Andy Reid. I mean, he's just proven it the last couple of years. I mean, he does have Patrick Mahomes, which makes life very easy. But his offensive scheme and just the way that he works with young quarterbacks, especially like taking 2 different teams to the Super Bowl, is big time, and the players love him from Kansas City, from everything you hear and the media and everything. So I took him with that. And then Ben Johnson. I mean, they both run the West Coast system. And obviously, Andy Reid's going to have a big hand in what happens in the offense. But one thing that I thought was exciting was the trick plays. I know it's not something that's going to win you a game, but like if you can slow down Brevon's defensive line because they're thinking about what's going to happen, or if this left tackle that enters the game is eligible now, like I mean that helps. And he's taken Jared Goff and gotten Jared Goff paid. Like he's done a lot with. I mean, Jared Goff's a good quarterback, but C.J. Stroud is, I think, a tier above him or a couple of tiers above him. And then Steve Spagnuolo, what he did with the Chiefs defense this year, I mean, it was really good, but it was really young. So just having that there, and just he's gone to, I mean, how many Super Bowls with the Chiefs, which, yes, again, Patrick Mahomes having probably arguably the greatest quarterback or soon to be greatest quarterback of all time really helps. But what he did with the defense and just making it work this year was really impressive, making it top 5. So with that being said, my first overall pick was C.J. Stroud. I mean, I wanted to get Micah Parsons right away. That's who I was going to go with because I thought Brevon was going C.J. Stroud. But as soon as Brevon went Micah, I'm like, got to get my man C.J. He was really important on offense. And I think I went maybe Jettas, had to represent my man Jettas. But I think I went Jettas Puka next for my offense, which Puka Nacua having less than $1 million in cap. And as good of a wide receiver he is, that's such a big get, in my opinion. And then doing this draft, I went really cheap right away. Like I didn't really spend that much money. And later on in the draft, I was able to get Christian McCaffrey. And then I think I also got Lane Johnson later on in the draft and Wyatt Teller later on in the draft for the offense, which was really big. And then going over to my defense, Will Anderson, he won Defensive Player of the or Rookie of the Year, right? Yeah. I believe so.
Yep.
Yeah. So having Will Anderson on the other side of Nick Bosa, then having two older but still really productive D tackles with Fletcher Cox and DeForest Buckner there, I thought was really important. And then I put it in my starting lineup as a dime, but because I read something that Steve likes to go dime a lot, so I just thought that was really something I wanted to highlight with my team. So I just went with Nick Bolton, which is the perfect middle linebacker, that linebacker there, because that's what he's going to play, or that's what he has played in Steve's system. And then with my DBs as Trayvon Diggs, Trent McDuffie, AJ Terrell, and then those guys are just lockdown guys. Trayvon Diggs led the league in interceptions a couple of years ago. Was about to set a record. So that was really, really big time get that I got. And then Blankenship being a really solid safety. Xavier McKinney and Antonio Winfield Jr. Like all those guys are top 3, top 5, let's go. All 3 are probably top 10 maybe in safeties, and their contracts aren't that terrible. So that was really big there. And then I obviously have guys like Quay Walker, Rashawn Gary down there. Christian Gonzalez can come in, and so that filled out that. And then my offense, I think my big highlight on my offense is having Chris Olave, and then alongside Devontae Smith, Puka Nacua, and Justin Jefferson. Like, think of what Andy Reid can do with that. And then Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. That's a nightmare for people to try to guard. And then my offensive line, I mean, Tyron Smith is a very solid, hopefully. I just need him to play one game here. Hopefully he can stay healthy during that one game. But Tyron Smith with a $2.9 million cap hit. Hopefully, I mean, that's a big time get there. And Wyatt Teller is a very good guard. I kicked him over to left guard, even though he plays right guard mostly. Tyler Linderbaum is a young and up-and-coming center, which is really helpful to have. And he has a cheaper contract too. And then one guy that I want to highlight is on the all lines part is JC Latham. I just listened to the Tennessee Titans new head coach. He did an interview with a podcast, and he was on the interview like talking about like him hitting the sled, and this sled is like meant not to get like hit perfectly right away. So like you struggle, and like he made a bet and he lost the bet, and then later on, like after rookie mini camps, he was out there hitting the sled, like driving it down the field, trying to get better at that. And he played right tackle at Alabama. He'll get moved to left tackle probably at Tennessee, but I think he is just really good. And Jackson Power Johnson, really good center too, that can probably move around a little bit. So that's my team.
Yeah. I'll go first. I do really like that wide receiver core. It's a really good wide receiver core. Um, Having that, like everyone except for Tyler Linderbaum on the offensive line is very experienced. So being able to really run whatever off on that team is really nice for Andy Reid because like sometimes with like those really good young linemen, they're really good in that one system. Like they haven't experienced anything else. So if you're in a outside zone uh, scheme like a Kevin Stefanski, you may not be able to go over to like an Arthur Smith who's more of like a power run, like he likes his gap schemes more, and you can kind of like fall off a little bit. So having that versatile offensive line is really good. Um, I think those cornerbacks are pretty good. The safeties is tough for me. I think safety is a hard position, like in between like those really top guys and then the next tier. Like a lot of these positions, you can get a tier one guy and a tier two guy and like barely be a difference. But I think at safety is one of those big separators. But probably one of the easiest systems to play safety in is probably Spag's defense, just because of how much pressure he sends, and he really relies on those corners and just kind of puts them on islands. So then the safeties aren't. I mean, you're responsible for helping, but you don't have to cover as much ground. You don't have to worry so much, and that ball's coming out when he's pressuring. He's sending. He's going, and so you really only got to cover for those first 2 to 3 seconds, and then you're in the clear. So as long as you don't have a huge problem, you're in the clear. Um, your linebacker core is there's not a lot of big names. I think Quay Walker's a good linebacker. I think Nick Bolton's a good linebacker. Isaiah Simmons, he's not bad. So I think the defense. I think the defense is more. Like I definitely think you would get like if this defense came out into the NFL right now, it'd be a number one defense. Uh, but it's just not like that flashy defense. But there's nothing wrong with that. I think the offense is. I think it's built really well. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think it would be electric having that offense in Andy Reid's scheme. I think it'd be crazy. Your thoughts, Brevin?
Well, obviously, I think you started off really well getting CJ Stroud, getting the top quarterback on that cheaper contract, was able to help you build out a lot more positions as well. And then being able to snag like a Christian McCaffrey and an Andy Reid offense would be pretty filthy along with that receiving core. You forgot to mention Rashee Rice. He knows that system, obviously, and he's also one of the young up-and-coming receivers if he can
Not get in trouble.
stay home every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I think the bright spot is that offense, obviously, and Andy Reid could do a lot of different things with the different weapons as well. And Sam Laporta at tight end, one of the young tight ends with like a $2 million, $3 million cap hit. So being able to get that contract was big. On defense, I really like your DBs. You have 3 very, very lockdown corners, and then you also have the playmaker off the bench in Tariq Woolen. You also have Christian Gonzalez, who was one of the better corners in the league before he got hurt. So I think you got a lot of splash at like the skill positions on offense and defense, but Kyle Shanahan likes to run that ball up the middle, so we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. My team. I hit the cap dead square on at 210 exactly. In terms of offense, or in terms of my head coach, I got Bill Belichick with the last pick. He is the greatest coach of all time, and we are taking all play calling responsibilities away from him. He just needs to call all the shots in the important situations and sit in that film room like he enjoys, and sit there for 23 hours and just watch it and make sure Bobby Slowick and Jim Schwartz are prepared. I think Bobby and that Texans offense last year was elite, and I think he was kind of him and Ben Johnson should have been front runners for head coaching jobs. It's in terms of this draft, it's kind of goated that they didn't get picked so that we could have them. But I think definitely next year they're going to be gone and on to head coaching jobs. Bobby's from that Shanahan offense, so we're going to be running that Shanahan West Coast offense. So that's why I got Brock Purdy, especially when he's only $1 million. And then on defense, Jim Schwartz, he led the best defense last year. He's electric. He runs a 4-man front. He runs a lot of nickel. Against those heavier package, it would be a 4-3. And he's just so creative with everything. It's a nightmare to play him on offense. And if you just stack that defense better than what Cleveland's already done, it's terrifying to imagine what that defense did considering what they did this year. On offense, I did get Brock Purdy, I said that. And then my big pieces was getting Tyreek Hill. I had to cut down save because 31 mil is a lot to pay a receiver. But I mean, when you have the most electrifying man in football, I think that would be awesome. Along with Mike Evans, who's a threat at all aspects. Like if you leave him one-on-one because you're going to have to focus on Tyreek, I think Mike Evans is dunking on every other corner that you have. And then Amon-Ra in the slot, I mean, he's already unguardable, so imagining him being the third option is just filthy. My running back room, Nick Chubb and Bijan. I really went for that thunder and lightning. Nick Chubb is on pace for having the highest career yards per carry in the history of the NFL. Granted, he's in a great system behind a great offensive line, but in this game, he's got just as good an offensive line, and he's going to run all over him. And then Bijan, he's just nasty. You just get the ball in his hands and just watch it. It's incredible. I went David Njoku because outside of like George Kittle, like Brevin got, David Njoku's a lot cheaper, but he blocks like pretty much like a 6 offensive lineman. And last year he finally came into his own as a receiver and really showed off what the Browns saw in him coming out of Miami. I mean, they saw this ginormous human being who said, well, if we can get him the ball, he's not getting tackled. And he's kind of finally learned that, and he's learned how to catch the ball. The offensive line, Brevin, I wasn't prepared for Brevin to go with 5 offensive linemen in his first 6 picks. So he kind of snatched up a lot of those guys. So we had to pivot a little bit. But you get Rashawn Slater, one of the best up-and-coming left tackles in the game. You get a veteran like Joel Bitonio and Ryan Jensen. With Jason Kelce gone, I think Ryan could be pushing for one of the best centers coming into this season right now. And then you get 2 young guys on the right side in Trey Smith and Dwad Jones, who are absolute beasts, and combined they only cost me $4 million. So in the run game, they're going to kind of just be road graders on that right side. Off the bench, Isaiah Wine and Graham Barton. Isaiah can play both tackle spots, and Graham, coming out of Duke, he can play center, he can play guard, right? That was his big thing coming into the draft, was he was such a versatile player. So getting him to come off the bench and learning from Ryan and Joel would be goated. My weapons off the bench, Devon Achane. I mean, Tyreek and him, we've already seen what the Dolphins do with all that speed, so trying to get as much of that speed over here as possible. Tank Dell, he was lighting it up before he got injured. Pat Freiermuth is a very solid and another tight end who, when he's on the field, he's going to block, and you can believe in that. And then the best fullback in the NFL, Nick Harris. Shout out his center, real
Kyle
position.
Juszczyk?
No. Kyle Juszczyk ain't 320.
Doesn't make just because a guy's 320 doesn't make him the best fullback. And
If I'm running behind someone, I'm running behind Nick Harris. Kyle Juszczyk, he was my original guy, but he's 3.6 million, and yeah, he can definitely do a lot more. But when it became a cap issue, I was like, I just got to get the best blocker, and that's Nick Harris. Technically, he's a center, so he could be another plug-and-play guy at the offensive line. But last year, he played fullback for Cleveland, and he was road grading. On defense, I said Brevin took my 2 ends, so I switched to Max Crosby and Aiden Hutchinson. I think they're both great guys. Max was he's a top 5 edge rusher in the NFL right now. And then pairing them with 2D tackles like Christian Wilkins and Jalen Carter, I think you can't double team them all. So whoever's going to get left one-on-one, they're going to feast. And then off the bench, a Shaquille Barrett and a Byron Young. to kind of fill in those pass rushing downs if you wanted. Can definitely help get some of those guys rest like Jalen Carter and Aiden Hutchinson, kind of get those guys off the field a little bit, any of them really. And then at nose, Maurice Hurst at 1.7. I mean, he was swallowing people at the middle of that Browns defensive line last year, so putting him right back in that spot, especially with the talent around him, I can't imagine how much better he would be. The linebacker core, Fred Warner, I think he's the best linebacker in the NFL. Then you pair him with someone like JOK. Up until like the last couple of weeks of the season when the Browns defense was kind of torn up a little bit with injuries, he was leading the league in non-D linemen with tackles for loss. I mean, his instincts to just fly. If you like watching linebackers play football, like just watch JOK play. It is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And then a young guy, Edgerrin Cooper, out of Texas A&M. At Texas A&M, he played every possible spot, and I think Jim Schwartz would love someone like that where, yeah, he can go play end, he can go play off-ball linebacker, he can go out and cover. You can do all this creative stuff with him, like you, and any of these guys really, and really just give these offenses problems. At corner, Sauce and Denzel, and then at nickel, Greg Newsome. Denzel and Greg Newsome are already part of this Jim Schwartz defense. He just loves running man, so Sauce Gardner is going to have a heyday there. And then other corner is Joey Porter Jr. He really showed promise with the Steelers last year, so getting him into this system would be cool. At safety was a big thing for me just because of how versatile Jim Schwartz defense is. Those safeties have to be able to kind of do it all, right? Sometimes they're going to end up in the box. Sometimes they were out just man press on some of these elite slot wide receivers and had to just lock down. Sometimes they were covering deep. So having someone like Kyle Hamilton, who I know he's young, but I would consider him probably the second best safety in the NFL behind Derwin James right now. He's filthy. And then Jaquan Brisker, who had a great year last year for the Bears, for only $2 million, was a great pickup. And then off the bench for that position, I did bring in Grant Delpit, who have him at the money position, which is kind of that hybrid player that's, he's going to be the one coming down in the box at 6'4", 215. He's the one coming out to the slot, staying back, right? When they go into that dime package and they bring him and Greg Newsome onto the field, you come out to run it, Grant's going to step into that box, then there's not going to be an issue. So I think that was like a really key spot. Him or Kyle can step into that box just fine. And then Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, just a very good veteran safety coming off the bench who can really do it all and was only $2 million. So I think that's a huge veteran piece to have on this defense. Who wants to give their thoughts?
I right away when I got Shanahan, obviously I was looking at Purdy, but obviously his contract and just the fit in that offense, as well as the talent he has as well. I like the receiving core as well. Mike Evans, your red zone threat, Tyreek Hill, your burner, and then Amon-Ra, you need a first down, go get it for me. Offensive line, I think you stayed cheap and you got some youth as well. Right tackle, I don't know. I didn't watch DeJuan Jones and bunch. I think didn't he get hurt last year?
Yeah, he played
the end of the year.
He only got 4 games in, and in those 4 games, I don't think he allowed one pressure the entire time. And then he messed up his knee and had to sit the rest of the year.
So off the bench, obviously you got a dynamic weapon with Devon Achane. You got Freiermuth. I think he's an underrated tight end as well. On the defensive side of the ball, as a Michigan man, I love Aiden Hutchinson. I was like so close to.
Oh, is he gone?
I think he lagged. Well, I can take over for a little bit until he gets back on here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like Brock Purdy. His big knock is he has the Avengers around him on offense. But I mean, you put Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, Amon-Ra St. Brown, B.J. Robinson, Nick Chubb around him. That's a recipe for success. And the offensive line that you constructed is definitely better than the 49ers offensive line. So that will definitely be big time. The only thing that I see on offense is like tight end. Like your tight ends block well, but the pass catching, like you said, David Njoku kind of broke out on the scene this year. We'll see if he can do it again next year. Um, and then Nick Chubb. Hopefully, Nick Chubb can come back to who he was. He had a pretty serious knee injury,
Yeah.
but I mean, Bijan Robinson and Devon Achane is still a nasty running back room. So I think your offense was really well constructed. Brock Purdy is probably one of the bigger steals of the draft too, just because he's a really solid quarterback, really accurate, runs the system well, and he puts the ball on the receivers, which is really important. Like all you have to do is get Tyreek the ball and get out the way almost. So I think that's really good. Your defense, I love your linebacking room with Fred Warner, best linebacker in the league. And then JOK, like he's just so versatile. Like I think that's one of the reasons he got drafted is because like he could maybe go in the slot and cover a receiver if you needed him to and stuff like that. And then Sauce Gardner speaks for himself. No touchdowns in college. I mean, everyone says his first touchdown this year was like his fault, but it was just a misunderstanding between him and the safety that they had on the field at the time. So that's also a really big thing. So you definitely have the top guys like Kyle Hamilton. I love Kyle. Like watching him play against the 49ers, I think it was on Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Like that man was flying around the field making every play known to mankind. Like you don't think he's going to get to the ball, he's going to get to the ball. So I think that was really good pickup, and I really wanted him for my secondary. Your D line is obviously really explosive. Max Crosby being a dude. I think he's one of the most underrated guys that doesn't get talked about, and he just goes and goes. So I think that's always going to be really hard. One of your more underrated picks that I liked, let me find him. I guess I already talked about it, but it was the JOK pick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just what he can do on offense is really big. Like, I know I took Isaiah Simmons, and like when he came out of the draft, he was supposed to be like this guy that could, like, the reason he got drafted so high is because he could supposedly do all these good things. And yeah, the Cardinals really haven't had that good team, and now he's on a different team. But JOK has been everything that everyone expected Isaiah Simmons to be. So that's really high praise for him. So I thought that was really good.
Yeah, I think bringing up that Isaiah Simmons was kind of the reason I think that JOK falls. Like if Isaiah Simmons works out, I think JOK goes in the first round. But because of the disaster with Simmons, I think people kind of got nervous about him, and then he fell, and Cleveland was able to get him in the second round. I think that was huge. I mean, he plays, like I said, he flies around, and then like you don't want to attack him in coverage. Like he might as well be an island corner where like you don't even look his way. Like he's going one-on-one with Travis Kelce, and I mean no one's gonna lock up Travis Kelce, but in terms of standing your ground, I think he's one of the few linebackers that can do it.
Yeah.
So he's a great tool. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. And then the only thing that like as far as like your coaching tree is Bill Belichick. It'd just be interesting to see like his demeanor with all these personalities. Like you got Tyreek Hill on offense, you got Max Crosby on defense, Sauce Gardner on defense. Like you got some I don't know how big of a personality Tank Dell has, but like you just got guys that like to be themselves and be a little different, do flips into the end zone. And obviously Bill's handled that. Like he had Randy Moss, he had Gronk, he knows how to handle that. But it'd just be interesting to see what this new wave of young guys and how that would mix with Belichick.
Yeah. All right. We're running out of time. So yeah. Look at the teams, decide which team you like the best. Make sure to leave your vote in the comments so that we know which team wins in your eyes. And oh, there they go. He's gone. So yeah, like I said, here I'll show all the teams one more time. Take a look, decide which team you think is the best and would win, or which team you would want to be a fan of. And let us know in the comments, and then make sure to like and subscribe and turn on those notifications so you don't miss anything. We got some big stuff coming up. This is just the beginning. So thank you for watching.